Okay, Unit 10, Lecture 2, we're going to go into civil rights. Before I get there, I would just like to discuss briefly the Supreme Court and its power, because by interpreting that power broadly, the Supreme Court can reshape American society. And it's important to realize that the membership of the court has changed over time and now includes women and minorities. And I'm going to give you a few names you have to remember with that in a minute. And also, with the Supreme Court, I want you to remember as the membership changes, they can hear similar cases and then have a different interpretation of the law, which allows the Supreme Court to change its mind kind of over time, all right? So I want you to remember Sandra Day O'Connor. She's the first female in the United States Supreme Court. Thurgood Marshall is the first African-American Supreme Court justice, and we'll talk about him more later in his role in Brown versus Board and the NAACP. We also want to know that one of the most important jobs of the United States Supreme Court is to protect the individual rights that are enumerated or listed in the Constitution. Okay, and also, or especially our right to privacy from government interference, which we'll discuss more later on. Okay, I want to review a little bit about civil rights before I get into it, but first I want to try and get your whiteboard up for you to take a look at. Okay, 1 second, perhaps. All right. So in the case of Plessy versus Ferguson, the Supreme Court ruled in 1896 that separate but equal facilities did not violate the 14th Amendment. Thereby, the Supreme Court said that Southern states could legally segregate whites and blacks as long as the separate facilities were equal. By this ruling, the Supreme Court upheld segregation or Jim Crow laws, which the Southern states had passed in the late 19th century. Plessy versus Ferguson then set precedent for the Southern states to segregate all areas of Southern life. Different states passed segregation laws at different times and different years, but by the early 20th century, all Southern states required by law racial segregation in public facilities and had denied almost all African Americans the right to vote. Okay, and in practice, the separate facilities, which were always separate in the Southern states, were never, if ever, never equal. Okay? So in 1909, an interracial group of reformers organized the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. Okay, the NAACP. All right. The NAACP, we want to remember W.E.B. Du Bois and Ida B. Wells as founding members of the NAACP. The purpose of the NAACP is to secure the rights, legal rights of African Americans, and to challenge racial segregation in the courts. Okay, from its beginning, the NAACP is going to work to end legal segregation in Southern states and gain the right to vote for the South's black citizens. Okay, before World War II ended in 1945, the NAACP had attacked Jim Crow laws by attacking the equality issue of the separate but equal doctrine. The NAACP is going to argue that Southern states were violating the Plessy versus Ferguson decision because they're failing to provide equal facilities. So separate's fine, but where are the equal facilities? Okay, and we're going to get into the modern civil rights era now, which traces its beginning, which was right after World War II when President Truman issued Executive Order 9981. This orders the integration of the United States Armed Forces. Not long after this, the NAACP is going to decide to attack directly Plessy's decision's idea that racial segregation or separation of the races could be constitutional. The NAACP is going to employ a team of lawyers called the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, who filed lawsuits against racial segregation in several public school systems in the South. Thurgood Marshall served as chief counsel or lawyer of the NAACP and headed the legal defense team. Oliver Hill is going to be an African-American attorney, or is an African-American attorney from Richmond, who will head the NAACP legal defense team in Virginia, and worked on school desegregation, a suit involving Prince Edward County Public Schools. We'll stop there right now.